Doctor Who has a lot of wasted potential. There's lots of episodes which could be better with a few tweaks. A lot of seasons that would be good, but a few episodes ruin them. And then there's ideas within the show that are absolutely incredible, but they're executed very poorly. And in today's video, we're talking about one of those, the Flux. The Flux is Doctor Who's one and only serialized series, where a story continues across all of the episodes. And as the video is Doctor Who outdated rightfully points out, this more serialized format is what's popular at the moment. This is what viewers would like to see, rather than the anthology type series, where every episode is unrelated, and then just a through line throughout all the episodes. And this is a great idea for Doctor Who. This is what's currently popular, what people want to see, so it would be great for the show to do again, but unfortunately with this attempt, it was only 6 episodes long due to COVID and other reasons. And if you're attempting a brand new format for Doctor Who, and you can only have 6 episodes in this one series, you need realistically nearly every single episode to be good, be a banger episode to really shield this idea, right? Because the series is so long and this is a brand new format idea. However, the show just doesn't deliver here, unfortunately. It should be noted, though, that War of the Sontarans and Village of the Angels, 2 episodes in this series, are arguably 2 of the best episodes of the 13th Doctor's era, and are just great episodes of Doctor Who in general. The Sontarans are incredible, their designs are great, and the Weeping Angels here are genuinely scary, and, are very, very interesting. But unfortunately, whilst these 2 episodes of Doctor Who are incredibly interesting, and just great episodes of Doctor Who, let alone just great episodes of television, the other episodes in this series just really aren't. The series tries to tackle the Timeless Child debacle, and I don't like how they try to tackle it. By the end, the Doctor has access to the Timeless Child memories, the memories that they don't have from their previous incarnations. And what do they do with the watch that contains all the information? Is that they put it in the TARDIS and it just disappears. I genuinely hate it, because if you wanted to introduce a big idea like the Timeless Child, I would much rather you did something with it. They tried to with Tectayun, right? Tectayun is in this series very briefly, before just, vanishing as well. But the Flux is a series that suffers a lot with this. Take the Grand Serpent, for example. This character is introduced within this series. The Grand Serpent messes with UNIT, it's the reason that UNIT ends up shutting down, and, okay, all well and good, and then nothing happens. It's very anticlimactic, he goes into a dodgy green screen room, and gets left there. A lot of the characters within the series, the new ones at least, are heavily underdeveloped, uninteresting, and just boring. This not only goes for Tectayun and the Grand Serpent, but a character introduced in this series called Vinder. Vinder is very two-dimensional. Vinder wants to get reunited with his pregnant partner. That's pretty much it. Very bland, very boring, and nobody, quite frankly, gives a fuck. And that's my overall issue with this series of the show, is there's so many unique and interesting ideas like the Flux that really don't get to flourish because we get bogged down by trying to have explanations for the Timeless Child, we have other characters like the Grand Serpent, and we have, the crystallized bodies. There's just too much going on which physically cannot be squeezed into 6 episodes of the show. So, like the idea of the Flux destroying half the universe and it kind of being the Doctor's fault is incredibly interesting, but it does not get to flourish within the series. The Doctor just really doesn't even care. Don't see a characterization of how the Flux really affects the Doctor. It really kind of gets brushed off because, we've got to fit and squeeze so much into these 6 episodes that a great idea like that doesn't get to flourish. We don't get to see Jodie Whittaker's acting chops here because we just kind of swiftly move on. That's left to David Tennant's 14th Doctor to deal with when he has that kind of breakdown in Wild Blue Yonder about the Flux. And actually, this idea of the Flux being this incredibly traumatic thing, right? Wiping out half the universe finally gets acknowledged with the 14th Doctor and characterized in a way better way. It's a great idea that Chris Chibnall introduced, but just did not characterize it in a great way whatsoever and missed the important parts of it, the emotional beats that would make this story so great. And unfortunately, that was left for RTD to pick up. I think the show really missed a trick with the Flux. I think they should have more focused on the Flux than anything else in the series. Of course, keeping the Timeless Child elements, because of course by this point you've kind of dug yourself into a hole where you need a type of explanation to, sum it all up. But the Flux is what should have been focused on in this series. The Flux is the interesting part of this series, and unfortunately it just doesn't get developed enough. The emotional beats that this story could carry don't get developed enough until far later when Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker had already left the show. And with doing that, there's a few things of course that would remove. The Grand Serpent, Vinder, and another character I would remove is the companion Dan. The companion that does not get to flourish and really doesn't make a difference here. I would then focus on Yaz and the Doctor's relationship, not Dan. Dan is a character that is pretty much sidelined throughout the Flux and then only has 2 more episodes to flourish before, leaving. it's a pointless and useless character. I'd much rather have the time spent on Dan, the little bit of time spent on him, focused on the relationship between the Doctor and Yaz and strengthening that for the audience. There's just so much stuff in this series that really doesn't need to be there, so the core ideas, the great ideas, get lost amongst a bunch of filler.
Friends, it'll wait. They'll all wait. It says they're enjoying watching you work it out.
What's going on?
Doctor, it's been communicating with them. I can sense it. I don't know what it's said to them, but...
Connor, don't worry. Stay there. Don't go any closer! We're stuck in 1901.
Wait, what? Maybe we should have broke that to you a little bit more gently.
There was just so much potential with this series, and every time I find myself wanting to re-watch it, I really struggle. Because there are just so many great ideas that really don't get enough time to flourish, and that's the only thing I can really think about when looking at this series. Episodes like The Village of the Angels and Brothers on Tyrants are great, fantastic episodes to watch on their own. They're great standalone episodes, because as a serialized series, this kind of failed. The Flux has way too much going on, it's too messy. It only has 6 episodes, which of course isn't the show's fault, but then when you have an episode like Survivors the Flux, which is pretty much filler, you lose a lot of the storytelling capabilities. And honestly, it's a shame to see. I do think this is Doctor Who's biggest wasted potential by far. Jodie Whittaker was on top performance this entire series. There were 2 incredible episodes, Brothers on Tyrants and Village of the Angels, which are just fantastic, and you know, if the episodes were just even half as good, this series would be great, and I think people would look more favourably on Jodie Whittaker's era. This was Jodie Whittaker's last series as a Doctor, and therefore the last attempt to be able to prove to audiences that yes, Jodie Whittaker is a good Doctor and this is a good series. And it was also a series to try and prove that the serialized format works for Doctor Who, and unfortunately it fails at doing both those things for the general audience. Because of how mid the rest of these episodes are, the serialized format just doesn't hit as well because a lot of it is so messy and, you know, shit. And due to that, it meant that for the general audience, this series really couldn't prove that Jodie Whittaker is a good Doctor like she genuinely is. Jodie Whittaker is great in the role as the 13th Doctor, but this series just didn't prove that. It didn't prove that this era is good, and, you know, contributed to the idea that Jodie Whittaker's era is terrible. And for all the reasons I mentioned in this video and that bit, this is why I think that this series is Doctor Who's biggest piece of wasted potential.
The next, the crossing is in progress.
And this place?
My seed vault. Genetic traces from the previous universe to import into the next. To preserve what will have gone.
That universe isn't going anywhere.
It's over, Doctor. It has been ever since we let a virus into the experiment.
What sort of virus?
You.
So many good ideas, just not executed well enough. But everybody watching, what's your thoughts on the Flux? Please feel free to comment down below. And whilst you're down there, you might as well subscribe. But I've been your host Samuel, and I will catch you in the next Doctor Who related video.